Magic the Gathering releases a new card type in 15 years and everyone loses their minds. Let's see.
For decades, the first turn in any game of limited Magic the Gathering followed the same play pattern. Play a land, go. Play a land, go. Classic? Oh, you bet. Interesting? Not very. But then about 5 years ago...
But was it a problem? No, not really.
Something odd happened. Common cards started showing up that were actually worth playing on turn 1. Now, I'm pretty confident that this was because one of the goals of the Wizards design team was to make turn 1 matter in the grand scheme of the game, and in that, I think they succeeded. But...
And they made turn 1 matter more than turn 20. I don't call exactly that a success, but well, they accomplished something.
Man, oh man, did that have some unintended consequences.
True.
Thanks so much to Nebula for reliably being the best way to watch a ton of great content early and free of ads like this one. Magic is like almost no other game. It's been around for almost 30 years, and for most of that time, its design leadership has been fairly stable. As a designer, this is amazing. It means that you can watch their design thinking evolve, and you can get a pretty good idea of what they're trying to do with each set. Which leads us back to the push to make turn 1 interesting in Limited.
Okay.
For years, even the most aggressive Limited decks were loath to put in turn 1 plays. Usually common 1-mana creatures were 1/1s with no, or at best, dismal abilities. But then the design team started to really push these cards. 1/1 flyers with lifelink.
Healing Pigeon, yeah, that wasn't a mistake.
Cards that were key synergy pieces for the main decks in the format. Soon, the player base adapted, and everyone was tossing things out turn 1. Or at least the more experienced players were. Now, this had what might be an unexpected effect, though to give the team at Wizards their due, they probably did anticipate it somewhat. It made games faster. Meaning, although...
Well, arguably, that's not a good thing. Currently, one of the biggest weaknesses of Magic is that statistically, and this is mathematically proven statistically, there is literally no reason to not play aggro on average. Unless you're in a tournament where you know what your opponent is gonna play. What is the current method that most people are going to be playing towards? There is no reason to play anything but aggro, because aggro is just more reliable. Let me give you the easiest rundown. When you're playing mono-red aggro, every single card you put in deals damage to your opponent's face. And against that, well, you have people who need to draw removal, need to draw more draw spells, need to draw something that heals them potentially, and so on. So, it's one game plan versus I need to get lucky and get one of my three game plan things drawn now, otherwise I'm kind of in a bad position. And also, those red aggro decks, by the way, they can play less lands, which means they're going to be way more consistent at drawing, well, you know, things that damage you. And, well, considering it's aggro, they don't need like 5 lands to actually start playing the game. They need 2. 3 is a luxury. 4 is you're probably going to 100% lose, because that ironically is the best amount of mana, because then you can actually be super aggressive on the right turns. But everyone else, they can get this crazy thing called a land screwed, which is going to probably make them lose.
Those late game bombs, those 7 or 8 mana gigantic critters that are so fun to play, well, they basically became unplayable. In Limited, if something said it costs 7+ mana, its text better have been incredibly OP. Because otherwise, you weren't playing it. And even if it effectively did win you the game, it meant that it had to become your whole game plan, what you built your entire deck around. This,
I wouldn't call that a bad thing, though. Yeah, I think cards that you build around are actually pretty good. They're pretty fun, they're pretty interesting most of the times.
Obviously wasn't the best either. So the team then had a new goal. Slow down games without losing the progress they'd made on making turn 1 matter. Now, they couldn't just up your life total or something, as that would break all older formats and the balancing they'd done in the past. So what did they do instead? They created battles, the first new card type that they've introduced into the...
I'm already gonna call sus because, you know, my experience, battles don't matter. And I'll explain why probably later if this video is about battles making aggro less aggro-y.
Game in 15 years. Battles themselves are pretty straightforward. They have an effect when you cast them, and then when you do enough damage to them, how much varies from card to card, they flip over and become a much more powerful spell for you. Now, you probably see where this is going, right?
No.
If you're attacking your battles, you're not attacking the other player. So if over the course of the game you had a battle in play with 5 health, and you decided that you need to flip it in order to win the game, well now you have to do 25 damage instead of 20 to win. Which is kind of like if your opponent had 25 life to begin with, but it actually goes so much deeper than that.
Okay, before we go deeper, I would like to say that this is already created on an absolute fallacy. If you have ever played Aggro, and you're actually not garbage at it, and can play it properly, you're using battles that you sometimes do use battles, right? But you use these battles because they are exceptionally good. Like, for example, you're using that 2-cost battle as a removal, pretty much. Almost always. Invasion of Tarkir, he actually had it right there. You're using the 3-cost battle that does 4 damage to opponent's face and 1 damage to a creature. Or Planeswalker, was it? Yeah, you're using those cards because their effects are just baseline good. You're not using them to flip. On average, if you are actually attacking the battle, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage. Attacking the battle because the flip card is good, if you're playing aggro, is kind of like asking yourself to lose the game. Most of the time. The one exception I would probably say that this is not actually like fully true is if you imagine you're playing red aggro versus red aggro, and both of you are like on, I don't know, 15 HP on turn 5 some magically how, and both of you are top decking. In that case, flipping a battle is probably good, because, well, for red it's actually hard to deal 4 damage in a lot of cases on a single target in a single turn. So, you know, when you're top decking, having a 4/4 is like really strong and whatnot. But other than that, I think it's an absolute waste of time. It's like no one attacks the battles because it's not smart.
At 5 health battle, well, it doesn't care if you do more than 5 to it. Let's say the only creatures you have available to attack it had 3 power and 4 power. If you want to flip it, you're now going to have to do 7 damage to it. That's kind of like your opponent starting with 35% more life, give or take. There's another layer to it, though. Just by being on the board, battles slow down the game. Once you have a battle in play, your opponent always has to be worried about you attacking and flipping it. This means that they're going to have to leave.
This is a common thing I see actually people doing standard for mono green. And a lot of people are using Invasion of Zendikar because it's literally currently the strongest ramp card in the game. And, well, the problem with Invasion of Zendikar is I would have lost so many games if people just did not flip Invasion of Zendikar. Because flipping it does nothing. It adds like a 4/4 with Vigilance that can give you mana. It's completely useless. I have had so many games where I actually would have lost the game if my opponent just decided to go face, because face is the place, not flip the thing. I think people are gonna just sooner or later come to the conclusion that they should have come to the conclusion of, like, pretty much instantaneously the battles honestly were released, that flipping them is almost borderline completely useless unless you are a control deck that's using a battle. Because in those situations it's good. For example, Invasion of Toklada or whatever the thing, you know, the Reanimator card, the 5-cost Orzhov one. Yeah, that one is good to flip because if you are control, well, flipping it is pretty much always applying pressure and it's the late game. So, you know, getting a 2/1 with lifelink is really, really good for the rest of the game while you're slowly just dealing with your opponent. That's amazing. But that's pretty much honestly the only battle I ever won a flip, kinda. You know? All the other battles are just not good enough.
Leave more creatures on defense in case you have some tricky way of trying to get through. The sheer psychological effect of one of these hitting the table will often make your opponents more cautious and psych themselves out about things like haste creatures and removal spells. This all adds up to the games going longer and allowing for...
I have never been mad about my player going instead of face and flipping a battle. I have never been like, oh no, this is the game ruiner. No, again, only the invasion thing for reanimators, for Orzhov Reanimator or for Atraxa combos. That's it. That's the only battle you kind of don't want to being flipped because it has persistent value. And that's it. Every other battle, flip it. Waste your time. You're essentially throwing your turn away for me to draw one more card, chances are I'm gonna draw a Vrat or something. And then your flippity-floopity battle is completely useless when you flip it.
For a much more, shall we say, swingy experience. Instead of just getting run over, the games feel like they have a lot more back and forth, which also helps make the games feel like they're going longer. Especially for new players, modern aggro decks often feel like a steamroll, which made games both unsatisfying and feel like they were happening way too quick. And in those sorts of games,
he knows. This guy's actually smart. He has played Magic.
You don't get to do any of the cool things you were trying to do. With battles, though, we now see a play pattern where, yes, sure, there's sometimes an early aggro stomp, but then maybe you get one good turn, you flip one of your battles, and start to stabilize. Maybe you don't even flip your battle. Maybe just having it there is enough. Or maybe your opponent feels like they have to flip one of their battles.
I have never seen an aggro player choose not to attack on an empty board if I have a battle down. I don't think that has ever happened. I don't think I have ever seen that. You're either attacking or you're not attacking at all.
Giving you just that little bit of extra breathing room for your stronger late game cards to come into play. It's this seesaw gameplay. The faster deck starts winning, then the deck with better card quality takes the lead, then it goes back and forth as people start dropping bombs. That makes the game feel like a longer, more satisfying experience. It isn't just I got rushed down or I stalled until they ran out of steam. It has dynamics. And then when you're telling your friends about these games, there's now kind of a story there, a bit of an arc, which I think is key. Because when people say they want a slower format in Magic, I'm guessing they probably don't mean specifically they just want the games to take more time. Kind of feels
like... actually, that's a good way to summarize it. I feel if Magic on average took 6 turns, it would be great. I mean, you can literally see that Wizards did this. A year ago, if you played Historic, every game was decided on turn 4 and pretty much who goes first. Now Magic, through some Magic RNG manipulation, has made it in the Historic that the average game length is like 7 turns or something like that. And you know, guess what? It is more fun. Even though you're playing against the same aggro bullshit, you're playing against the same exact stuff. They have just literally nerfed the RNG that you don't get these cards that just win you the game. And that's it. Battles have nothing to do with it. I rarely see anyone actually play battles in Historic.
Like they want a chance to be able to play a variety of decks and do big things that might swing the game. Swinging us right back to where we began. A design decision that led to speed and power creep in Magic. A desire to reverse that effect. Another decision to...
Oh, it's the music of the video. I got scared that aliens are gonna abduct me.
Find a way to secretly increase the player's health without changing the game, and the genius of it is how many levels it worked on. But there is one more...
None! It worked on 0 levels!
Question that does remain. What unintended consequences will future players have to battle out of from this change? Well, for the answer to that, we'll see you back here in a couple more years. Oh damn, you're like slow rolling the old content train now, are you? That is a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him. Ugh, casual Matt, I do not have time for your shenanigans today. No, you got it all wrong. I was actually...
Also, he's doing it like from one ear to the other.
Actually just swinging by to pay you a compliment of all things for your guest spot as the voice of Bill Gates in Low Spec Gamer's kick-ass new Nebula first.
Okay, that's cool. Well, that was a short one. I completely disagree. I don't think battles have changed the game at all. They have completely not worked at making games longer because there's literally never a reason to flip them. I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion, but I have personally never seen anyone even try to flip a battle when they're playing red. Unless they literally have one card, and for some reason they can flip the battle with that one card and get a stronger card out of it. Which technically I guess would be kind of slightly his point, but that's just hitting the end game of the point correctly, but the early part of it is still wrong. It's a wild thing, it's a wild thing. Anyway, what do you think about battles? I don't know. I won't believe probably any of you. It's just, oh yeah, battles, man. Battles, like, the aggro brain sees a battle and they're like, oh, must attack battle. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. Anyway, great video, honestly. Great video, extra credits. 10 out of 10 even, honestly. Even though I disagree with it, it's actually a really good video. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sid. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye!